Hey guys, and welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. In this episode, I interviewed Dave from Missouri. Him and his sister were walking down a forested trail when they started hearing something coming out of the woods. He describes an upright, hairy creature that could only be described as a Sasquatch. It was chasing a rabbit across the trail. The creature quickly noticed Dave and his sister and took off back into the woods. This encounter happened on some private property near the Robertsville State Park area. The area is extremely close to the Meramec River and is an optimal spot for Sasquatch activity. Hey Dave, welcome to Sasquatch Theory, and I appreciate you being on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself and your Sasquatch encounter.
All right. Well, like I said, my name's Dave. I grew up in North St. Louis County. We moved out to Robertsville in Franklin County in 94, 95. I was 13 years old. We moved out there in January. So it was still cold, snow on the ground, whatnot. My parents bought roughly, 5-6 acres of wooded land out there. It got to be the end of March, beginning of April. Weather started getting a little nicer, so me and my younger sister decided to head out and check out the property. We've never really been out in the woods like that before. And we started heading back away from the house, started heading back behind the barn that was already on the property when we bought it. We never really used the barn for anything. So this is the first time I had really been back there at that time. We headed around the side of the barn, and me and my sister, we stopped because we could hear something running through the woods. I'm not sure if we heard it running through the leaf litter or just the brush or whatnot. So we stopped, and we could see something running on all fours chasing a rabbit. It stopped and stood up and looked at us. It had an oh crap look on its face. It was roughly, I'm not real good with distance, but I'd say 30, 40 feet from us, maybe 50 feet, but on the other side of a brush pile. When we come around the back of the barn, there was a brush pile there that I guess the previous owners had drug up out of the woods there and kind of piled up. It was maybe 3 to 4 foot high, but it was a good 20 to 30 foot in diameter. And it was on the other side of the brush pile from us when it stood up and looked at us. Like I said, it kind of had a no crap look on its face, like it wasn't expecting to run into us. It took roughly 2 steps back, dropped down on all fours, and took off towards the back end of the property where there's a bluff that overlooks the railroad tracks and kind of a creek that leads to the river. And the way this thing dropped down and ran, I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was kind of amazing, really. I wasn't expecting that at all. It almost gave me a fear of the woods there for a little while. It was roughly 6 foot tall. Not real big. I mean, it was actually kind of lean. It had a reddish brown cinnamon color hair fur to it. The face looked wider than the head, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how to describe that. almost a football shaped head, but the face looked wider than the head was. If maybe the cheekbones protruded out the sides more, I'm not sure how to
Kind of
really.
like Hey Arnold, like stretched out
Yeah.
like that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean that's exaggerated. Yeah. Kind of like when I spoke to you before. That's kind of what I can compare it to. The Hey Arnold cartoon, the football shaped head. Hey Arnold's kind of extreme. Wasn't that wide, but
Mm.
it seemed out of out of proportion, if that makes sense. The face seemed bigger than it should have been. On, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of what sticks out to me because, like I said, it wasn't real big. I'm assuming maybe I saw a juvenile. Um, because, like I said, it's only height wise, it's only a size I am now. I'm only roughly 6 foot tall, and it was only about that height. It wasn't real tall. Um, I mean, it was quite a bit bigger than I was at the time. I was only 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but all the pictures I've seen and stuff, it wasn't the big barrel chested pictures I've seen. This was actually lean.
Yeah. So it wasn't like the size of the Hulk. It was more of like a medium-sized Bigfoot, kind of like slender.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It was still good sized. I mean, it wasn't like skinny, malnutritioned, anything like that. It was still good. I mean, like I said, right now I'm 6 foot tall and about 185 pounds. It was roughly my height, but it was quite a bit heavier than me. But it wasn't massive.
Right.
If that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And you described the eyes. They were more like almond shaped and black.
Yes, they were almond shaped and they were black. Um, I mean, black.
Mm.
The almond shape. I don't know if that was kind of appeared more almond shaped than they were because, like I said, the face seemed so wide, like the eyes were stretched to fit the face. If that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you didn't get the sense that he was trying to hurt you guys, he or she.
No, not at all. I don't know if it was male or female. I did not see breasts, and I could not. Well, I couldn't really see the genitals, but I didn't really pay attention either.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but no, I did not get any sense of. Well, I got a sense of fear. You know what I mean? Because or
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't really even say fear, shock, awe. You know what I mean? But I had no sense that it was going to hurt me. I think we actually surprised it as much as it surprised us. Um, because the look on its face, like I literally seen an expression of, oh crap, the eyes kind of opened up, like the brow raised. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you think the Bigfoot was so distracted by chasing the rabbit that he didn't even realize you two were there?
And that's what I figured because there's kind of a trail that would kind of led back there, a footpath. I'm guessing the people that lived there before kind of had it worn in already. So we were on there. So there, I mean, I'm guessing with the running because it was pretty loud. The running that we heard coming through there, that it probably never even heard us. And the people that lived there before us, they had already moved out and been gone for quite a while, from my understanding. Um, like I said, I was pretty young. I wasn't privy to all that information, but from my understanding, they weren't there for quite a while. So I'm guessing if they were back there and would chase rabbit and deer or whatnot back there, that nobody's had been back there for a while, so maybe wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah. So this area hasn't been explored for a while at
Yeah,
that time.
yeah. At the time, we had already been there for. I guess we actually moved out there at the end of December and beginning of January, something like that, and because it was right after Christmas. And we haven't been out there on the property at all that winter until it was probably the good first week of April or so till when we got out there.
Mhm.
And then before that, like I said, the people supposedly hadn't lived there for a while.
Yeah. Could you describe the weather, the time of day, and anything you can remember?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I'd say in the 50s,
Mhm.
kind of still wet on the ground from the leaf litter and stuff that was there. I guess the sun hadn't really been out enough when the snow melt and all that kind of stuff. So it was still kind of wet on the ground.
Mhm.
Uh, but let's see, time of day, I guess it was probably early afternoon or so.
Mhm.
It was daylight. That I remember. Me and my sister got out to go play and explore for the first little bit. So I say, in my house, we never got up early. So it wasn't like really early in the day. So I'd say early afternoon.
Yeah. And when the Sasquatch stood up and stared at you guys, what did it do? Take off running?
It actually stood there for, I couldn't tell you exactly how long. It seemed like a few seconds, you know what I mean? And like I said, we were kind of in shock and awe. And it took a step or two back and then dropped down to all fours. And then it took off running. Uh, I guess you'd call that a run. I'm not sure. I've never seen anything run that fast and move like that. It was
Mhm.
amazing.
Did it go back the way it was coming from?
No, actually, the way it was coming up from, the way the property was set out, it was on a slight hill. Like I said, if you go towards the back of the property, there was that bluff. Well, it kind of graded down to where you could pretty much walk down to the bottom of the bluff to where you're even on the flat ground down below. It kind of came from the, I guess, the left end of the property where it kind of sloped up. It was running up from that way, but when it took off back towards the bluff.
Mm.
So when it took off running, it basically direct 90 degrees from where it came from.
Yeah. And are there any caves, springs, or rivers nearby?
It's well, when you get to the end of the property that overlooked the bluff, if you actually walk down the bluff and then as soon as you're on the railroad tracks at that point, you cross over the railroad tracks and then there's the creek and whatnot. And I'd say within a half mile to a mile at the most, you're hitting the Meramec River by Robertsville State Park.
Yeah. And have you ever heard any other encounters in this area?
I've heard quite a few encounters out that way, Robertsville area, Lonedale, and then I've heard a few in Robertsville State Park.
Yeah. And kind of what kind of happened after the Sasquatch took off?
Me and my sister actually took off back running towards the house, and like I told you before, I kind of feel bad now that we're grown, but I was supposed to be out there, as my little sister protector. I kind of left her behind. I'm not gonna lie. I kicked it into high gear and took off back to the house, and I left her behind.
Yeah. And do you guys talk about it right now?
uh,
Or is that
no,
something you guys don't talk about?
no, I don't really see her much anymore. She kind of moved away, and she's busy doing her thing. So I don't really get to speak to her much. But no, we haven't talked about it a few times since. And when I bring it up, she still says she don't know what it was, kind of thing. She's like, I don't know. I just don't know.
Mm. Yeah. It's hard to process something like that.
Yeah. Like I said, after that I started doing a little bit of research since then, and that's when I found the other encounters from the Robertsville area and Franklin County area. And just then that's kind of looking into the subject over the years. That's definitely what I saw. I believe I saw a juvenile Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's really cool, and what an amazing experience.
Yeah. Like I said, it's intrigued me. It's fascinated me. I've kind of almost become addicted to the subject now. That's kind of what I do in my spare time. I just kind of look into it, watch more videos, just see how many encounters have had similar things happen or describe what I saw. You know what I mean? Just to kind of give me confirmation that,
Yeah.
you know, that is what I saw. And I'm pretty well, I know is what I saw now. I can't say I think I'm pretty confident I can say I know that's what I saw.
Yeah. And do you ever try to go out and look for answers or try to capture some type of evidence?
I've looked around. I've never gone as far as actually like try to cast any prints or anything like that. But I've gone out in the woods. Well, every time I go out in the woods, I kind of look for sign just to see if I see any tree breaks. Um, I do look for footprints and whatnot. I haven't really found any footprint or anything like that. I even look for, just random structures out there, bedding laid down is in random spots in the middle of nowhere, that kind of thing. Because now that I moved out further, I actually live out further in the woods now. Live right down on a river. I take my kid with me out in the woods here and just kind of tell him to go for a nature hike, but I'm out looking for sign.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So how fast do you think the Sasquatch was whenever it took off?
Oh, I couldn't even guesstimate a speed because I have never seen anything move like I couldn't floor my truck and go that fast. It was amazing. The acceleration that it was a blur. It it I don't know. I've never seen like a cheetah in real life outside of the zoo, but other than the videos I saw, I would assume something like a big cat type acceleration, the pounce, and it was so fluid. The way it just moved all fours and took off, it was like it was one motion. And it almost brings a chill to think about it again as fast as it moved. I mean, it
It's
was
almost like a vacuum sucked it up or something.
yeah, that would be a good explanation if it weighed, a half a gram kind of thing in
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
the vacuum would suck it up that fast. I mean,
I always say the juvenile that I witnessed, if I would have blinked, I would have thought it just disappeared into thin air.
absolutely. Had I turned my head, or if, like you said, if I blinked, I was in such shock. I probably did not blink. It moved so fast, and then it was just like gone. You can actually where we were at, you could see down into the property a little bit because there wasn't a whole lot of new growth yet. You know what I mean? It was still early April. Everything wasn't real green yet, kind of thing. So you could still kind of see down through there, and it was so fast. Had I took off running from where it was at down towards the property or down towards the bluff at the end of the property, and if you were standing where I was at, you'd see me probably be able to run till I dropped off the slight incline. This thing moves so fast. I never seen it go past taking off. Really, you know what I mean? It was just gone.
Yeah, and if there's one, there's more, and most likely he was heading back to the group.
And that's kind of what I've picked up over the years, that just the one you saw, there's several more you probably didn't see. And like I said, I assume it was a juvenile, adolescent type thing, because it was, like I said, 6 foot tall. And I guess if it was heading back that way, that was back towards quote unquote safety, how to get away. You know what I mean? Because once you get down towards the end of that bluff and cross some railroad tracks, I mean, there's just cow pastures for a couple hundred yards till you get to the other tree line, where basically the river and stuff is on the other side of that tree line.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you experience anything strange like time loss or anything that you noticed?
No, nothing like that. Nothing that I would myself would consider like the paranormal realm. No, it was just, well, I wasn't expecting to run into that either. So, but no time loss, at least that I'm aware of at this point. Like I said, when we stopped and we made the eye contact, kind of saw each other's face, and I seen the oh crap look on his face. It was long enough that I got to actually see the expression. It seemed like when he stepped back, it was almost slow mode, like he took one slow step back. But that could only been a couple of seconds. That could have been 10, 15 seconds. But no major time loss or anything like that. I mean, I don't really would consider it time loss as much as it was time slowed down because of the shock of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. When you have large amounts of adrenaline rushing through your body, time's going to slow down.
Yeah, and because but then right after that, like I said, when we took off running back towards the house, I feel like I got back to that front door faster than I
Yeah.
like it balanced itself out and sped back up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause it's a few hundred feet from from the front door back to walking back behind the barn and whatnot. And maybe it was the adrenaline going, but it only set like a hop, skip, and a jump, and I was back at that front door.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing it wasn't a negative encounter. The thing didn't try to chase you guys. It sounds like it was just trying to hunt for food and noticed you guys were there and took off.
Yeah, thank God, because like I said, when it dropped down, there's no way we'd outran it. It's impossible. There's absolutely no way I could have outran that. And I was in pretty good shape at 13 years old. You know what I mean? I played around, ran around, played sports year round, that kind of thing. And there's just absolutely no way I could not outran it in a car.
Yeah. They say like a chimp is 9 times stronger than a big male human. So I imagine just a juvenile Sasquatch is probably about 12 times stronger.
Yeah, if the strength ratio kind of stays consistent and goes up like that, the size of this thing, which is bigger than a chimp, it would be impressively powerful. And then a full grown, I can only imagine the strength that would have.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your theory on how the Sasquatch disappear?
I'm I'm not sure if it's that they move as fast as I've seen and it just disappears and our naked eye can't catch that. It moves that fast. Or if I've seen or heard plenty of stories and read some articles and whatnot of what seems to be could be interdimensional. I don't tend to lean that way with what I've seen and whatnot, but I who am I to say? You know what I mean? But I guess anything's possible with because we don't really know anything about this creature. But
Yeah.
what I personally think that it moves fast enough and the way it moves that our eye just can't catch it after that initial leap, that it's a blur. It's gone. And the way they're able to camouflage themselves in the natural surroundings, I mean, heck, as far as I know, it could run, make that initial jump, run, and run 30 feet and disappear in a bush, and I would never know. You know what I mean? And and then my mind would assume it disappeared. I don't know.
Hmm. No, I agree, and I think they're constantly moving around people, and they're kind of a blur just because they're moving really fast from one spot to another, and I
And
think it's just hard for our eyes to adjust to that.
I would tend to agree with that. I mean, maybe if you've witnessed enough, got out in the woods and actually witnessed enough and seen enough of them that a trained eye may be able to catch it, but just your average hiker that don't really have any experience or knowledge of the subject walking through the woods, they could run right by you 10 feet in the woods, and I'm a believer you wouldn't even see it or realize it was there if it really wanted to hide.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so now that you've went out kind of looking for sign, have you found anything in that specific area that adds up with the encounter that you had? Maybe like a giant axe or some type of den or anything like that?
I've never really come across anything that I can say for sure. I've seen some out of place trees down in the, like Robertsville State Park area. That's 3 or 4 miles where with how the crow flies or whatever from where I had my encounter. I've walked around down there and I've seen some out of place trees. Almost looks like they're stuck through a tree, if that makes sense, like the branches. But it does flood down there with the Meramec, so I can't say for 100%, but it just seems out of place because it's the only one in the general area. You know what I mean? I figured if it flooded, there'd be several. Um,
Hmm.
I've heard some stories of people finding track and whatnot back behind the cemetery in Robertsville State Park, which the Meramec River runs right through the state park and up through the power cut that runs up through there. That I was told by somebody that said they followed a trackway up that way. I didn't personally see that myself
Hmm.
out there, but like I said, outside of the tree that I seen kind of stuck in a kind of spot that it shouldn't be, that it doesn't seem like it was natural deadfall, but it could have got put through there in the flood, I guess. But I'm not sure how high the water actually got.
Yeah, it's a common thing to hear about Sasquatch activity near power line strips, graveyards, or I don't know, abandoned trails.
Okay. Well, down there in the park where I go down there, where there is a trail down there. I'm not sure how many people actually walk it anymore. Um, Down there, and then there's the cemetery, and then the power cut, and then you get to the river. And it's an amazing park to go to, and spend the day at, and
Hmm.
then just kind of walking around out there because the several sightings and encounters I've heard of out there. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Are
outside of
there
that,
any shooting ranges nearby?
yes, actually, where I had the encounter, those railroad tracks, instead
Mhm.
of which run down through the state park. If you come down the end of that property, if you head down one way, you go to the state park. If you head down the other way, maybe 2 miles, there is a gun club down there, and they're constantly shooting and whatnot out there.
Yeah, I always find Bigfoot structures or activity near the shooting ranges. I don't know if like the Bigfoot are like attracted to the loud sounds or if it's the restricted zones within the area.
Yeah, see, that would kind of make sense to me with the restricted zones, um, especially if they got structures, because I believe they kind of use the structures more like a hunting blind than housing or coverage. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I mean, if they're going down there and watching the humans come down there and fire their gun off, and that would kind of makes sense in my head because I've heard several encounters of them. People saying as soon as they pulled out a weapon, the temperament changed. They understand what a weapon is, specifically a gun. So that would kind of make sense if they have those structures over by the shooting range and using it as a blind to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a really interesting area, and I'll have to check it out someday.
The Franklin County Sheriff actually goes down there and does their gun training down there at this particular gun range and lets their dogs run and whatnot down there also.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Well, I think that pretty much sums up your encounters, and it was really good to hear another Bigfoot encounter from Missouri.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever come across anything else, feel free to get a hold of me.
Oh, absolutely. I will.
All right, Dave. Well, I'll let you get on with your day, and I really appreciate you taking the time to tell your encounter to everyone.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again, Dave, for sharing your encounter with everyone. I really do believe the Sasquatch moves so fast that our brains can't process the speed. It's more than just a belief. I've seen it with my own eyes. With a combination of strength, natural camouflage, and an intelligence level beyond our own in the forest, how can we really gauge what they are capable of? I have heard many accounts from the Robertsville area, and I think we will continue hearing more strange stories in the future from this particular spot. I've said it from the beginning, the Meramec River in Missouri is a hot spot for Bigfoot activity, but good luck finding them because it's a long stretch of river and woods. Alright everyone, that is it for now. Thank you everyone for watching, and until the next one.